I have seen some truly ridiculous teams thrown out there as Jake Retzlaff could wind up here. Okay. I'll start with where I do think he could wind up. Number one, Tennessee. Now, this is all presuming, of course, that Retzlaff is able to get into the new transfer portal window, get a waiver. Okay, let's say for the sake of argument that he does, because we're in the pro player era of college sports. This guy is no longer at BYU, didn't want to sit out half the season because of violating the honor code. Okay, let's say he transfers. Tennessee would make sense. This is a quarterback room that was surprisingly and very suddenly void of Nico Iamaleava. They complete the quarterback swap with Joey Aguilar coming from UCLA, priorly at Appalachian State. I think UCLA should have sent over a couple of first-round picks or maybe mid-round picks just to compensate for the upside that Nico hits his 5-star potential one day. But that's a different conversation. Tennessee, to me, would make sense. Now, any school, this is a conversation for any school to have when considering going out and getting Jake Retzlaff. Are you willing to deal with the perception, whether you think it's fair or not? I have no idea what happened behind the scenes with the legal case. I'm not diving into that. The bottom line with Jake Retzlaff is he just won 10 games with a BYU program, 11 with the bowl game. He just won 10 games with a program that doesn't win double-digit games every single year. And was he a Heisman Trophy favorite? No. Was he the best quarterback in his conference? No. Was he good enough to win football games? You're darn right. And guess what? BYU pulled some magic out of their rear ends. They pulled some rabbits out of the hat last year to win games. You can't do that if your quarterback isn't a gamer. However, there is an off-field distraction. You can't get away from that. So any school that wants to go at him has to be okay with the fact that certain people are going to see it this way, whether you think that's right or wrong, that some people are not really going to like it, that does that shift the perception of our program? You have to be willing to overlook that. And whenever that comes into play in the sports world, what I always ask myself is, does the talent make it worth it? Retzlaff's numbers last year were not overly spectacular. 20 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, just under 3,000 yards, 58% completion. I mean, he wasn't lighting the world on fire, but he was clearly good and is capable of being a Power 4 starting quarterback. We know that. That's why he would make sense at Tennessee. Aguilar has never started a game in the Power 4. Now, Appalachian State plays in the Sun Belt, good, solid, competitive league. You feel like, okay, perhaps that's a situation that he can come in and thrive with. Josh Heupel's got a good track record with quarterbacks over the last several years with the Vols. Okay, I can see it. If you're wanting someone who's more proven, yeah, Retzlaff could be the answer. So I could see it. Do I suspect they go in that direction? I really don't. Even though it would make sense, I don't think they're going to go there. Because if you remember, if you go back to that wonderful stretch of shows that I did here on the show in April, in which I discussed the Nico situation and all the drama that came with it, one thing that I addressed was Josh Heupel's comments and how he came out and said the right things and said what's good for college football, which is, hey, we're going to support this kid's right to go. I don't wish him any ill will. No one's bigger than the Power T. Keeping it about Tennessee, about the Vols, about the program, about the institution, that had to endear him to a lot of fans. Does he want to bring in someone that could possibly alienate some of those fans? Does he want to take that sort of risk? I don't think that he does. I don't think that Retzlaff's talent for Tennessee is worth a potential off-field distraction. Another team I've seen thrown out there is Maryland. I suppose, sure, they lost Billy Edwards Jr. to Wisconsin in the transfer portal. Their program feels like they're kind of in limbo. Mike Locksley could be one of the first Big Ten coaches fired in the next year or two. Yeah, if you don't feel like you have a great guy in the room, okay, sure, that's feasible. I think it's most likely, and I don't have just one school in mind for the third option. I think it's most likely that Retzlaff winds up at a group of 5 school somewhere because his talent is clear. We saw that last year. He's got a better arm than I and many others gave him credit for. He outperformed my expectations. He outperformed a lot of people's expectations, maybe even some within the BYU fan base. If you sent him to, and this is not a direct suggestion because, of course, they have their quarterback with Maddox Madsen, but Retzlaff at the Power 4 level has a good arm. At the Group of 5 level, if they had their own Heisman, he could push for it. He went down and played a year, before he got to BYU, played JUCO ball. He threw for over 4,500 yards. I am not comparing G5 ball to JUCO ball. That would be an insult the likes of which I would never utter. I just would not. But this is a guy who can sling it around the yard a little bit. And I'm going to go out on a wild limb and say G5 defenses are not as tough as the Big 12, which might not be as tough as the SEC. Certainly be a step down from all that. I think if there's a G5 contender, I don't know if Tulane would go out and take a shot here, but if there's somebody like that wants to go and get a guy who they can win football games with, boy, he could certainly be that sort of option. So that's where I suspect, without having a particular school in mind, I bet if he does wind up finding a destination to be a starting quarterback this fall, I bet it's at a Group of 5 school. I now need to push back on some of the ridiculousness that has, if you go to that wonderful search engine that we all use, Google, they call it, and you pull up a host of articles looking at where Jake Retzlaff could wind up, you will see, I don't want to be mean, there's plenty of mean, toxic people out there, so I'm going to use the nicest word that I can. You will see some of the dumbest takes imaginable about where Retzlaff could wind up. I've seen Georgia on it. Oh, man. I guess Georgia's not that concerned with off-field issues. We've seen that materialize over the last several years. No. Just no. Jake Retzlaff in the SEC, kind of a game manager sort of guy. Nothing wrong with that. You win 10 games max, 6 games minimum with Jake Retzlaff as your quarterback in the SEC. Nothing wrong with that. Plenty of programs to take it. I've seen Alabama get thrown out. Just stop. Just stop it. He's not walking into... If Ty Simpson is not the starter at Alabama, they're not going to the portal for a guy. They'll develop a young guy. And that'll help get Kalen DeBoer an extra year. And I don't think DeBoer's on the hot seat this year. I think they're going to win at least 9, probably 10 or 11 games this season and be okay. Presuming Ty Simpson's good. Maybe he's not. I don't know. We haven't seen a whole heck of a lot of him so far. The little we have seen, not overly impressive, but he's a former 5-star recruit. But you've got Austin Mack on that roster. You've got Keelan Russell on that roster. No. Just no. They're not void of quarterback talent. They're void of experience. Sure. This is Alabama. That's not going to happen. Okay. The other one, and let me stress that this is my number one. In no world will this take place. Jake Retzlaff to Stanford is the silliest idea imaginable. This is a school. Notice I didn't say a football program. This is a school highly concerned with the image that it projects, the type of men and women that its sports programs produce, and the pride it takes in being a premier institution in the United States. You add on top of that, Andrew Luck just got there and is putting his paw prints all over that program, rightfully so, actually letting him use the transfer portal, showing up at practice. I think he's got some wisdom on the sport. There is no way that those two things can be overcome to add a quarterback who's got an off-the-field tag that comes with him. No shot. I have seen, you can find that in just about every list of potential transfer destinations. I will have to eat so much crow if he winds up going there. I tell you what, if I could create a line at Spencer's Sportsbook, no, Jake Retzlaff won't transfer to Stanford is minus 10,000. That is, I don't know where these ideas come from. I don't know who put these sorts of lists together. You can find several. I mean, boy. While we're on the subject, briefly, of Group of 5 schools, then I'll get to my Big Ten preseason power rankings. I've seen UNLV thrown out there. Again, not a need. They brought in Anthony Colandrea from Virginia. They brought in Alex Orji from Michigan. They got plenty of options. UNLV does not need to go out and get Jake Retzlaff. The Stanford one, man. You're just not paying attention if you think Stanford. Alabama's more likely than Stanford. That doesn't make Alabama likely. Because Stanford, to me, 0. I think that is a 0% chance. And they're like top 3 on everybody's list out there. And I can't understand it. I really can't. So shut that notion down. I don't think he winds up at Tennessee. I think you'll see him playing for a Group of 5 school this year. And hey, you never know. Maybe he'll lead him to the playoff.